Einen Widerlein wird uns schwärmt Erika.
We have to talk about the Nazis in Ukraine. The Western media narrative would have us believe that the far right in Ukraine is no different to the far right growing and spreading all around the world right now. That this few bad apples don't spoil the entire batch. That this is a minority within Ukraine. This narrative would have us believe that the far right in Ukraine is no different to the far right in Russia, in Britain, in France, in Germany, and in the United States. But this isn't quite the truth. Unlike neo-Nazi organisations growing around Europe, the far-right National Socialist or Nazi organisations in Ukraine today, organisations like Right Sector, C14 and the Azov Battalion, among others, have their origins in the early 20th century with the creation of the Organisation of Ukrainian Nationalists, a far-right Nazi organisation that aligned itself with the Nazis and was led by such characters as Stepan Bandera and others who saw the Nazis, the SS, as fellow travellers. These were organisations who aligned themselves closely with the cause of the Nazis and saw this as an avenue for their own state nationalist ambitions. When the Nazis invaded in 1941, it was the OUN and other Ukrainian nationalist auxiliary police forces who rounded up the Jewish population of Lviv and began a massacre. They were involved in other massacres, including Babi Yar. These Ukrainian nationalists joined the SS as volunteer battalions. They manned the death camps, the Operation Reinhardt extermination camps of the Nazi German murder machine. The Nazis of Ukraine are unlike neo-Nazis and other far-right elements across Europe because they have an unbroken pedigree to the Holocaust, to the Nazis and the murderous ideology of Hitlerism. So how did this Nazi Ukrainian ideology survive all the way from the Second World War through the Cold War until today? Well, it happened because immediately after the Second World War, when Nazism was being thoroughly checked in Germany and in Austria, that the intelligence services of the United States, the CIA, in its earliest years, saw in these Ukrainian Nazis an ideal internal enemy that could be used by the United States to fight an insurgency against Russia and weaken and destabilise Russia. Nazis from Ukraine were brought to the United States. They were protected from war crimes charges. They were protected from all of the Nuremberg judgments, and they served an ideological purpose in the United States as a means of combating Russia from within, because these Nazis were in Ukraine and some were in the United States. And only now we are getting to see this project come to fruition. We have seen how Nazi paramilitaries in Ukraine have been armed by NATO. They have been trained with a view to fighting a long insurgency in this provoked Russian invasion. This is a proxy war being fought through paramilitaries, much like the United States did recently in Syria, designed to weaken Russia at the cost of Ukrainian lives. That the United States and its NATO clients are willing to fight against Russia to the very last Ukrainian. This is a long game, and this is it coming to fruition. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like you to take this on board, and I would certainly like you to support this project of Standpoint Zero by following us on Twitter, on Telegram, and if you really feel that what we are doing is of value, you might make a small donation to us on Patreon. I will leave all of the details in the description below. Thank you very much for listening. I am Jason Michael McCann, and this is Standpoint Zero.